But here what we are doing is we are not selling people, we are not selling services. What we are selling is a product that, hey, if you buy from Sprinkler, this is what you will be getting out of it, right? This is a predefined thing that you'll be getting out. So that is a product, right? And what also differentiates the product from a service is what we are selling to one customer that is repeatable. Then we can sell it to each and every customers of ours, right? That is what a product is. So a product company is basically what is building a product or selling a product that customers are willing to pay. And to really achieve this, a product manager is one who collaborates with the engineering and design to build that product, who collaborates with sales and marketing to sell that product, to make sure that there is product market fit, who collaborates with operations team to make sure that the customer is getting value out of your product, right? Like how many of us are a CureFit member, right? If you are a CureFit member, like, okay, you paid for it first month, but if you didn't go to gym at all, or if you don't go, if you didn't go to their center at all the entire year, you won't renew your service, right? So as a product manager, like if you really want to scale your product, if you really want to make sure that your product is successful, you have to make sure that Anant goes to gym or Chaitanya goes to gym, right? If you are a Swiggy's product manager, it's your job to make sure not just that I build a beautiful layout or I build a beautiful notification system. You might have the best UI UX in the world, but if I am not ordering food, you won't have your job in 6 months from now. Doesn't matter, you build the best UX out there, right? So you need to collaborate with the operations team, with the field team, to make sure that the customer is getting value out of what you said to the customer while you were selling. Customer really got that value out of your product, right? You need to collaborate with the client or with the users to find their pain points, right? Like, because if you're building something that no one is willing to use or no one has a use of, like, so all of us have heard those famous quotations that if a customer, if a like we can't go to our customers for their interviews because they don't really know what they want, right? Because we are building for the future. Now all of that is very great talk. It looks great while we are giving such presentations or such talks to new people, to entrepreneurs and everyone. But frankly, if as a product manager you're not talking to your users, you're not talking to your clients, you're not building something that is solving their pain point, right? So, and then lastly, like at the end of the day, any company works on the vision of the leadership. So as a product leader, you are collaborating with your executive team to ensure that whatever you're building is in complete alignment with the company vision. I cannot be building, I'm working in Swiggy, and I cannot be building a Spotify competitor, right? Because that that does not align, right? So you see, as product managers, right, it's not just one thing you are doing. And frankly, now you can come back and ask me that, hey, great, like there's a product that the engineering is building, there's a product that sales is selling, there's a product that a field team or the operations team are making sure that the customers are using. What the hell are you doing, right? Where are you in this entire chain, right? And you are the one who connects this entire chain, right? You are the one who has to make sure that this entire machinery, which includes the engineering, the design, the sales, the marketing, the operations, the client, the leadership, everything are working smoothly, right? Then you are the glue that holds them together. You are the one that makes sure that they are all talking to each other, right? So it's your job, and that's why you see the word collaborate in each and everything, right? So your primary job is to make sure that each and every function in the company is empowered to do their job the best, and to make sure that the customers, the clients, the users are using your product. And that is the job of a product manager in a product company, right? And just to substantiate that, now these are the things that, like, I've been in Sprinkler for 4 years as a product manager, right? And these are the kind of things that I have done in last 4 years, right? I've worked with my CEO on the product strategy and prioritization. I've worked with sales on the pricing model. I've worked with marketing on the pipeline. Now none of these are my job, frankly, right? Now pipeline is marketing's job, but if marketing is not like there are 10 products in Sprinkler. Why would marketing be selling my product, right? Why can't they be creating pipeline for 9 other products? Like their KPIs would be met even if they're creating pipeline for 9 other products and not for my product, right? If I have to make sure that my product is successful, I have to work, I have to collaborate with them, right? I'm working with the operations team to make sure that I'm checking on the customer health, right? I'm working with legal team to make sure that we are having perfect agreements with clients, with our partners. Partners in Sprinkler's terms would be like the Facebooks of the world, the Twitters of the world, the LinkedIn's of the world, and all of that, right? Our partners, right? I'm working with the human resources team to make sure that we are hiring the best people, right? I work with the pizza delivery company to make sure that whenever we have timelines, we have the pizzas available for the entire team, right? And all of that is part of my job, because if I'm not doing that, my team is failing, right? And if my team is failing, then I'm ultimately failing. And if I am failing, the product is failing. And if the product is failing, the company is failing, right? So all of these really, like really, if you see my day, like if you ask me, Chaitanya, where do you spend most of your day? Frankly, I'm spending most of my day in just talking to my team members across the board, not just my immediate reportees, but my exact, my counterpart in engineering, my counterpart in success, my counterpart in sales, just to understand their pain point. Then why are they not able to sell my product? But then why my customer is not able to use my product? Then why my team is not performing to its best? What can we do to make sure my team is performing to its best? Right? That what can we do to make sure the sales has everything to sell my product, right? That's it, right? Event planning, organizing team outings, just so that the team is up on their game, right? Now, this is what we have been doing in the 4 years as a product, as I have been doing, right? So how, like, I'm sure a lot of us, again, my favorite, Ben Horowitz, a good product man, like I'm sure if you are a very serious product enthusiast, you would have read the article, a good product manager, a bad product manager, right? I wish this talk would have been like in person. I could have easily asked that, hey, how many of you have heard this quote? And then it's much fun that way. But it's a very famous quote, right? A good product manager is the CEO of the product. And frankly, all of you guys have been sold that dream, that hey, you know what, you should go to product management, because you'll be CEO of your own product. You'll be running your own product, right? 5 years back, you were all sold the dreams of consulting, saying that, hey, you know what, you should go to the best consulting companies of the world, because these consulting companies will make you the CEO of someday, or they are the C-suite factory. 15 years back, the same reason was given for that, hey, you should join HUL and P&G because they are the CEO factories, right? And I think there's actually a book saying CEO factory and HUL. And it's not false as well, because there are a lot of CEOs which came out of that, right? But whenever I hear this statement, right, my reaction is generally, yeah, sure, why not, right? Like, seriously, right? Who is a CEO? Like, if I am the CEO of my company, everyone is reporting to me, right? And if I tell that, hey, Anand, you do this, Anand will do this. But frankly, when you're a product manager, no one is reporting to you, right? Like, sales is not reporting to me. Sales has their own numbers to meet. Marketing has their own KPIs to meet. Product has their own, engineering has their own KPIs to meet. Uh, so frankly, like, though I'm working with like 80 people on a weekly basis, out of them only 2 people report to me, or only 3 people report to me, or only 5 people report to me. Right? So only those 5 people I can have direct influence on, even if I can have it there, right? So like, a good product manager is the CEO of the product. Like, I do not completely buy. I do not buy at all this philosophy, and I'll tell you why. I personally see that a product manager, like, how many of you are sports enthusiasts, right? I'm a big sports enthusiast, right? So any talk that I give cannot be finished without having any reference to any a sports reference, right? So I see a product manager simply as a coach of a team, right? They're not the captain of the team, right? You're the coach of the team, and your job is to make sure that each and every, so when you're running a team, right? If I am, say, Gary Kirsten, right, in 2011 World Cup winning team of India, right? Now, to make that team a World Cup winning team, you need good batsmen, you need good bowlers, you need good all rounders, you need good wicket keeper. Outside that, you need someone who can take care of their physical health. You need someone who can take care of their mental health. You need someone who can get their sports equipment right. You need a sponsorship. You need to make sure that the best team is selected, so the selectors are onboarded as well, right? And we never heard, so when we won the World Cup, it was all Dhoni, it was all Sachin Tendulkar. Like, we never said Gary Kirsten, right? But it was like the Gary Kirsten's job there, or Mr. Ferguson's job in this Manchester United photo that you see, is to make sure that each and every member of this team, and when I say member of the team, I'm not just talking about the 11 players who are playing there, or the 15 people whose the team is but when I say member of the team, it's everyone, starting from the head of the BCCI or Manchester United to every last person in that particular team, right? Each and every member of the team has the right skill set, right experience, and right mental space to perform the best on their job, so that the team as a whole can reach their goal, right? That is the job of a product manager. You are the coach of a team, you're not the captain of the team, I'm sorry, right? So if you want to become the captain of the team, you should go on more specialist roles. But if you want to become if you want to gain skills, and if you want to help your team achieve greater things, then this is the role for you, right? And frankly, this does pay a lot in the long term, right? Because product leaders, though not really the CEOs of their product today, are seen as great candidates for the future CEOs. Because what you are doing is, because you are interacting with each and every of these function, you are getting skills that helps you take the top job in the future, right? Because you are focused on the money, you're focused on the users, you're focused on the data, you're focused on the future, right? You, like, a sales job would be to sell today, a marketer's job will be to generate pipeline today. It's your job to make sure that the product is relevant 5 years from now as well, right? You're focused on the future, right? A sales after selling does not care whether users are really using it or not, unless they have a big upsell motion there, right? It's your job as a product, make sure, because if your users are not using it, I'm sorry, right? You don't have a product anymore. So it does arm you with all the right kind of skills to take a top leadership role in the future, right? And we have a lot of examples of people who started as product managers and have done great in the CXO roles later, right? I'll show you some names which are like very, very big. But then frankly, there are other people. Jeff Bezos started as a product manager. Kevin Systrom started as a product manager. Marissa Mayer started as a product manager. You have Sundar Pichai started as a product manager. Like, you have tons and tons and tons of example of people who started as a product manager. And frankly, you'll also see a lot of startups, as they grow, initially their CEO is the one who takes the role of product owner as well, or the product manager as well, or the CPO kind of role as well, because product is very, very, very core to a product company. There's a reason these companies are called product companies, because you're selling a product, and that's why the product management becomes a very, very important function there, right? So I just, like, on my part, since every one of us aspire to become a product manager or a head of product or CPO someday, right? Now this is something that is my personal philosophy, and I really love this chart of Andrew, right? And this chart, like, whenever any of you will enter product management, you will see that a product manager, by default, as I showed you before, it's not a very hard skill. By hard, I mean it's not a very well defined skill, right? Like, a developer's job is very well defined, a sales job is very well defined, a marketer's job is very well defined, a product manager's job is not very well defined, right? So what that means is that by default, you will fall into the trap of being, I won't say trap, on the spectrum. Let's call it spectrum. You can fall anywhere on the spectrum of being 100% project manager to 100% a vision manager. And frankly, none of them is right, right? And what we typically associate product manager, and this is the trap that I was talking about, is that a product manager is actually a features manager, right? So everyone will, will talk about, hey, if you are a product manager, how will you build feature number one? If you are a product manager, can you draw mockups for feature number two? If you are a product manager, how do you see Anant using this particular feature? Great, but that is just one part or one very small part of your job, at least as you grow into the product management. So that might be a very good way to get started into the product management, right? And that's why you see this spectrum. So when you start in the product management, you'll be owning the features part of it, right? Hey, you have a feature coming in, how do we make sure it goes to production, the customers are using it? But as you grow into your career from being a project manager to being a head of product or a CPO kind of role, your role will go from just building for features to building for business strategy, and then to have the entire vision and strategy of the company, and building a culture where product can be built, right? And building a stakeholder management system, right? And hiring for a team. So you move like from on this spectrum, right to left. And the reason I wanted to show this spectrum is I wanted each and every one of you to have this spectrum in your mind when you go into your first job as a product manager, right? Because if you don't understand this, you will by default fall into the trap of being just a feature manager, right? And all of us have a stamina, or all of us have in us to become great. But to become great, we need to understand what that greatness is, or to realize what that greatness is, right? Or where does that greatness lie? And that greatness lie when you move from just talking about features to really understand customer empathy, to really understand customer, and then building for them, more strategically, and then building for the future. That is where the real product owner or head of product or CPO, or you can call it by myriads other name, like tech companies have, they can call anyone director, senior director, anything, right? So tech companies can just give can get very creative with their names, but it can be called anything. But that is how you move towards the head of product kind of role, right? Now, so that was the first part that we wanted to cover. I think second part Anant will take over, which will focus specifically on the prioritization part of it, and the topic of this conversation. Anant, do you want to take the screen, Anant, or you want me to manage the screen?
Let me share my screen. That should be easier, I guess. Visible to everyone?
Yeah.
Cool. So now that we've established that making features is probably 10% or 20% of that entire product management bucket, let's actually get into this dirty part. That how do you actually remain focused when your CTO is telling you this is my vision, when your engineering is telling you we have these blocker regressions, and your client is telling you make my feature, and your prospects are telling you that I will not come to your product if you don't make this feature, and your designers are telling you our usability sucks, we should do something about that. How do you remain focused amidst this myriad of people telling you what to do, right? Because end of the day, your focus is on how do you prioritize, right? That's what you want to. That's what your job as a product manager is. What to do at this time, and you'll the first thing you'll think is that maybe what I need to do is think of what I want to do in the short term and what I want to do in the long term. I think a big mistake sometimes we make is thinking of short term and long term as polar opposites, right? That if I'm doing this in the short term, this is not part of my long term. If I'm doing this in the long term, it's not part of my short term. But that's actually a little incorrect, because what you want to do is all of your short term things, everything that you want to do in the short term should be part of that long term product vision that you're striving for, right? That North Star that you are aiming for, which aligns with your company vision that we initially discussed. So every bet that you make in the short term, it has an objective, right? And that objective is the long product vision. So unless you're making all of your, if you're thinking of your short-term goals as part of the long term, you can easily get lost in situations where you think that this is what I want to do in the next 2 months, but after you're done with the next 2 months, you don't know what to do next because you didn't plan 2 months in advance of what's the result of this, right? So that's part one of it. That don't get confused between this is what I want to do in the short term, this is what I want to do in the long term. Just think of what's your product vision, what's the North Star that you're chasing, and just keep focusing on how do I get there, what are the milestones that I get there. That's all that short term goals that you have. So you really wanted to discuss this about this, right? What are the frameworks that exist for prioritizing a feature? How do you do that? What are key metrics you think of? What do you take into consideration when you have to compare between two features or anything like that? So let's talk about that. So what we'll go through is like some existing frameworks that have already been well documented. You can search about these on Wikipedia and search about this across the internet, and you'll get loads and loads of information, right? So let's just very briefly discuss each of these and try to understand what are the pros and cons of using each of these. The first one we'll go over is the RICE framework. So this is a very actually like probably one of the most used ones. It was established by Intercom. Intercom is another B2B SaaS company, very long in the game. So the RICE framework is made up of four components, right? You have reach, which basically means how many users are you going to, or how many customers are you going to impact with any feature, right? The second is impact, which basically measures to each individual user, right? What is the impact? Is it massive impact? Is it very minimal impact? What is the impact to a single user, right? So the difference between reach and impact, I hope that's clear, right? Reach is how many, and impact is how much, right? Your confidence is how confident you are about those reach and impact numbers, because before you make a feature, you never know how many people are going to use it. You never know how much impact it's going to have. So that's your confidence level. Are you 50% confident of the impact that you're suggesting, or are you like 90% confident of the impact that you're thinking about of that feature? So you multiply all of these, and then you divide this by effort, because which feature, if feature one takes 2 hours, feature two takes 2 days, you know what to build first, right? So you take all of these three metrics, and of course these are going to be just relative ones, because we are trying to prioritize between 1 and 2. You will never reach that a RICE score of 9.72 doesn't mean anything unless you're comparing it to another RICE score, right? So these are relative metrics. And each of these, like say even about impact, like people have a question of what does impact mean? So impact could be something very simple, right? You can just have a linear scale of 1 to 5. 5 is massive impact, one is minimal impact, 0 is no impact. So it could just be a relative scale that lets you compare between feature one versus feature two. So you take these four metrics, you come out with something called a RICE score, right? And whichever feature has a higher RICE score, that gives you sort of a ranking order of what you can go with. There are pros and cons of using this. The biggest benefit of using this, and that's why it's the most popular one, is it actually includes confidence into the score. Because you're not making plain guesses about what's going to happen 5 months down the line when you build that feature or you launch that feature. You're taking into account what's your confidence, and confidence is part of your score. So if you're 100% confident about a feature that will immediately have an impact, that might be more relevant to build than something about you're just 20% confident that this will have huge impact, but I'm only 20% confident about it, right? So that's how confidence being part of the score makes this such a powerful framework to compare between two features. This does have its cons, the biggest one being that reach impact, you never know what's going to happen in the future, right? So you have relative metrics. So that's the RICE framework. The next one we look at is the Canon model, right? This one basically is this is very useful when you're sort of building an initial product, or you're trying to build an MVP of a product. How the Canon model works is you have two scales. One which talks about what kind of a functionality are we talking about? Is it a basic functionality that this is needed, absolutely a must have? It is, without this the product doesn't work. The product doesn't exist without this, right? The second scale is your satisfaction scale on the vertical, on the y-axis that you see there. That for any feature, what's the customer satisfaction? What is it going to do to the customer? Is the customer going to be very satisfied if they have it, or are they going to be like not satisfied if they don't have it? And what this model lets you do is it gives you a very clear line between what features are absolutely must-haves, that a product will not work without this, versus what features could just be bells and whistles that will maybe not do a lot to satisfaction. The way you get this these satisfaction scores is you have to do a lot of surveys. right? So that's the downside of using a model like this. You actually need to go out and research that what are you, if you talk about these 5 features and you talk to each user that is probably going to use that feature, that this feature, do you think this is a must have or a could have or a should have, right? Or is it just a bell and whistle feature, right? So you need to actually do a lot of surveys to be able to generate a model and then do this prioritization. But the one reason where it is like very, very helpful is in building out MVPs, because you're able to understand what's the absolute minimum features that I am going to need before I can launch this product in the market. So that's how you use the Canon model. The next one we'll see is story mapping. This is also a little similar, and the reason, again, the benefit of this is also to generate MVPs, like a minimum viable product. In this, you have on the horizontal side, what we've done is we take the entire user journey into the picture. So if I'm take an example of a simple e-commerce product, right? The first thing, say an Amazon or a Flipkart. So the first thing you do is you search on something, then you click there and you land on a page of that product, right? Then you want to buy that product, so you probably have to sign up or log in first. And the fourth step is you make the payment and you check out and you buy that. So that's the typical journey of a an e-commerce or a website that you're using to sell a product. So you map out that journey, and then within each phase of that user journey, you put what are the features that I'm going to build for searching? What are the features I'm going to build for my landing page or the product page? What features do I build on my sign up page? What features do I want on my checkout page? Once you do this, what you get is basically to complete this user journey, you need features in you need to build features across all of the phases of a user, right? So this lets you draw a line within each journey of the user. What is the most impactful feature to build, right? So now we're not talking about the whole product. Maybe there were 5 features on the checkout page, right, that you wanted to build, which would have great impact. But if a person cannot search for the product, they're not even reaching that checkout page, right? If there's an issue on the sign up, right? If you can't, maybe like you're talking about a feature like say Facebook sign up or or a Google sign up. If you don't have that feature, it's very important for the sign up page. But if you're not able to land on a product, right? If you're not able to see what product am I buying, once I search for it and I click on the product page, there's something lacking on the product page. Maybe I don't see reviews. I'm not even going to reach that sign up stage, right? So what this lets you do is it lets you create, again, a minimum viable product, or what are the absolute basics which I need to have across each stage of my journey, right? Because within product search, I can understand it. These are the 5 features I want to build in search. These are the 5 things I want to build in the product page. But if you don't do it across all the phases of the user journey, building 5 things within product search is not going to help you if the checkout page doesn't work. So that's the idea behind story mapping. It's a very simple model, but it's very effective because it lets you understand that is my user journey getting complete or not, right? And how do I actually create the most impact within the user journey? Instead of thinking about what are my top 5 features across my product, I want to understand within each stage of the user journey, how do I ensure that I get the best results? And the last one we see is cost of delay. I think in today's time, this one has become actually like pretty important, because a lot of times, or a lot of product companies that we think, in the market today, the biggest, competitive differentiator that a lot of times we have in today's world is how soon can you get to market, right? Say there's a company which can build, if you want to build a feature and it takes 6 months to do it, but somebody is able to do it in 3 months, and you're still working and putting in 6 months to get that perfect product. Maybe the one which did it in 3 months, they get all the users, and when you launch 6 months later, you actually don't have any market to sell to, right? So that's a very simple model, is the cost of delay. If I launch today versus if I launch 6 months later, what's the impact it's going to have 6 months later, right? Because this is always going to, now you're always going to lag by those 6 months, right? Because somebody entered the market before you did. So they'll always have that a head start. This is again a very simple model, but it lets you understand what's the relevance of time, right? And it puts in a factor of, what do you see, like it as the business value, right? What is the impact to business of making a feature? Out of all of these ones that we've discussed, I think this one actually like takes into effect the business value the most, right? Because time is critical and time is money. So those were the frameworks that we wanted to discuss, go over, and just very briefly, right? You will see a lot of material all over internet, and you don't need somebody with just 4 years of experience telling you which framework to use, which ones to not use. This is just to basically get you an idea of models exist. You can Google and you can find out everything about them, and you'll probably see 10 or 20 or more models which work. And a lot of times these frameworks, they are very, very conditional. You're a B2B company, something else might work for you. You're a B2C company, something else might work. If you are, say, thinking about, a feature which is for UX, maybe you need a different model. If you're thinking about a feature which is added functionality, maybe you need to use a different model. So all of these frameworks usually, you know, this is what usually you need to end up doing with all of these frameworks, because unless you know which framework to use, framework is of no relevance, right? So what do? Right? They're no longer a feature manager. That's the first thing we discussed. We don't want to manage features. Because if you start talking about features every day, you will not understand what's the North Star, what's the goal that you have. And then there are like 10, 20, 100 people telling you that, design team is telling you this feature to make. The CTO is telling you, this is my roadmap. The support team is telling you that these are the issues we should fix for user experience. Everybody is telling you what to do, right? So you cannot just manage features. What you need to do is manage your stakeholders, right? So that's the bigger vision that even like, when we started with that, the goal that Chaitanya started with, this is the biggest point that we want to drive across, is you have to understand how to manage all your stakeholders together. So who are your stakeholders? Your stakeholders are your users, your buyers, your engineers, your designers, your sellers, your marketers, support, leadership team. All of these are your stakeholders, right? Right and wrong, because none of them belong to you. The engineers don't report to you. The designers don't report to you. The sales team doesn't report to you. The marketing team doesn't report to you. None of them report to you, right? You just have your product. The only thing you own here is your product. That's the only thing in which you can actually use that your word, right? These are users who use your product, buyers who buy your product, engineers who build your product, right? Engineers are not yours. The product is yours. So when you think about these stakeholders, right? These are not people who are going to be reporting to you. So all of these people, you'll have to lead by influence, right? You have to collaborate with them, understand what they need, right? Understand where their pain points are, where they're coming from, have that context, right? When an engineer is telling you that, I want to solve this problem because 6 months later it is going to become a bigger problem. Understand where he's coming from, because probably he's done that. Like been doing that engineering for 2 years. So just understand the context that these people are coming from, and it's your job to put a value to that engineers input that they are giving you, the designers input that they're giving you, the sellers who are trying to tell you to make new features to sell more, marketers who are trying to tell you what to do. That's your job to understand each of these. How do they help your product, right? Engineers, how do they help my product? Designers, how are they going to help my product, right? That's what I have to understand. But across all of this, my product, what do I do with what is more important to me right now? That's what I have to understand. So something that I thought we would be relevant. How do we do it at Sprinkler? So at Sprinkler, we have this concept or a process called a one list process. And what happens in the one list process is each functional department, right? We have take from your executives to your design, to IT operations, to marketing, channels, partners. Each functional department maintains their own list, right? The executive team knows what they want according to the vision. The sales team has a list of what they want. Engineering team has a list of what they want. Everybody creates their own criteria, right? Everybody creates their own list of features that are important to them. And then each functional lead. So if you're talking about sales, right? Whoever is the sales lead across Sprinkler, right, will decide that across all my sellers, I have 100 people who are selling these products, right? Everybody has their own clients. Everybody's going to ask a different thing. It's the sales leadership's job to understand across everybody, across my 100 salespeople, right? What are the topmost things that I want to see built? So what it does for the product team is instead of getting to features from 100 different people, I get features from the sales leadership, which are automatically prioritized for sales, right? So I get a list of the top 5 things, maybe instead of getting 100 things from 100 people, I get 5 things which matter the most to everybody across sales. And this we do everywhere, right? Engineering develops its own list, design has its own list, services will have its own list, maybe channels like Facebook's or LinkedIn, the ones we mentioned earlier. All of these, they keep rolling out new features every day, right? So every day they roll out something, we have to build it in Sprinkler. So there's a whole list that comes from channels, right? Product, like we also have to build our own thing. So you also see a the third last item that you see is product as its own list also, because we also have some idea of what we want to build, right? So everybody generates their own list, and each functional lead selects a quota of top items which are for their department. All of these items, so now we get like 5 items from leadership, 5 from sales, 5 from success. All of this goes into a prioritization list called the one list, which is cross-functional because this has everything from everybody, right? But it only has the top things from everybody, right? It's that first layer of filtering has already been done at the functional department level. The product owner is now going to prioritize between these 5 ones, that within sales, these are the 5 things that sales asked for, and these are the 5 things that success is asking for. How do I collaborate between these? Do I take pick 3 from sales and 2 from success? That's the part that the product owner will do. But what this has achieved us to do is give us a very, very, very filtered version of what are the top most impactful items across all of these departments, right? It is very important to consider this, right? There's one part that they're making your job easy. That what they've done is, instead of picking from maybe 1,000 features, you're picking from 200 features. But that's just one small benefit of it. The second benefit of it is that nobody's voice is getting drowned here, right? Maybe usually what you'll see is that most companies, they have a CEO, and the CEO typically has a nature, right? Maybe it's a very sales focused CEO. Maybe it's a very product focused CEO. And a lot of times what will happen is that your top leadership will be driving top down what actually happens. So what will happen is maybe the design team doesn't get a say in what is getting built, right? And that's incorrect, because the design team knows what to do about the UX. Only the design team knows that, not the product manager, not the engineering manager, not the CEO. That's the design team who knows that, right? So it's the design leadership who will decide that this is relevant. So two benefits: one, you get a filtered list, but two, more importantly, you're able to ensure that everybody gets a say and you're not missing out on anything. Once you get a list from everybody, that's where the product manager's role starts, right? Now it's up to the product manager to understand that, is my engineering problem more important right now, or is my design problem more important right now? Is channel parity more important, or selling to more clients is more important? That's when you come into the picture. And then you can use one of those 100 million frameworks, or you can use what makes more sense to you. But that's the idea behind the one list process. So you get a full list of all the features, you rank them. So this ranking that you see on the stage 2 on the yellow side. Oops. Yeah. So first you get a list of across the first stage is list across everybody. They rank it, they shortlist it, and then at step 4 is where the product manager comes in and evaluates that shortlisted criteria list and then plans it for a release. Chaitanya, do you want to add anything over there? I know this is a a big thing that we do at Sprint, and we wanted to
No, I
discuss
think
this.
I think all good. I think so. This is just one part, right? Obviously, then like once these are built, then like taking them to customer, making sure that they get adopted. There are hundreds of other things as well. So I think what Anand talked about is one part which the talk is supposed to be focused on, which is how do you prioritize and how do you rank. And the main thing that come out for me, at least from what Anand said, is that hey, it's your company's context, right? But you need a way to make sure that you are listening to everyone, right? So you listen to everyone, then you prioritize them based on your company's context. and then you build them, right? So I think that's the main takeaway for me.
Right. So we still have 5 minutes left. Let's see if what all we can cover. So what does it take to become a successful product
Anand,
manager? And I think
before,
yeah,
before we go into this, does it make sense to ask for some questions? I know we just have 5 minutes.
that actually makes sense. Yeah. I hope this is not the first question everybody asked.
Guys, is there anything that anyone wants to ask? Or like Prod Lab, I don't know how you guys want, you
Yeah.
run this Q&A session.
I think they had asked some questions. Chaitanya, you had answered it in the chat itself.
Okay, then we can move on.
Right. So what does it take to become a successful product manager? Of course, a disclaimer that, it's just been 4 years, and Chaitanya still has a lot of experience from Amazon and working previously. This is my first stint. I've been here 4 years, but so a disclaimer that we are still in the journey. But these are some factoids that we think have helped us as well as others around us, right? So, number one, core competencies. What basic things that we learn in school? What is revenue? What is profit? What you always want more profit. So we're talking about very simple core competencies. What is a product, right? What do engineers do? So very simple things, but I think these are very important. That what's the product life cycle? Where first designer think first you as a product manager think of a product requirement document, right? Then somebody from engineering designing builds designs that, engineering builds that, QA tests it, right? So you should know about product cycles. So these are core competencies which will of course help you, right? You absolutely need these to be able to survive in this. Second, communication, right? Establish even the most obvious facts in writing. Communication is so important. Like I think now that I think about it, it probably comes even before core competencies, because if you cannot communicate, then you're going to suffer, because your entire job rotates around collaborating with 10 different teams, right? Communication is key. Should be able to very simply, very clearly articulate everything. And one more important thing is tell people what's relevant to them, right? Don't start talking to an engineer about support issues or how to sell, right? When you're talking about to an engineer, you should be able to articulate what's relevant to them, because only then they will be able to understand the most of it out of it. So even the same sentence, right, when you're talking to sales, you'll probably want to use it a different language. You want to communicate it differently, because sales guys understand something different,
I think,
right?
yeah, I think just one thing that I would add in this also is also like what I have seen is it's better to err on the side of clarity. Like what does that mean is in our communication, even outside as a product manager in general in life, we have a lot of assumptions, right? And they don't generally go well when you're building something new. So it's best to clear out each and every of your assumption, right? It's better to err on the side of clarity rather than on missing out on something.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence. So you need to understand that end of the day, you're building something that somebody is using, right? Somebody is spending their time in using what you've built, right? When you're ordering food on Swiggy, you hate it when the app crashes, or you hate it when somehow like you click a button and it clears your cart and you've forgotten, right? What did I put in my food menu? So empathize with your users, right? Your users are your basic currency to think of in those terms, right? If you lose your users, you're left without you don't have a product, right? Empathize with your users, understand the friction that they have, put yourself in their shoes, try to do what they are doing, right? Only then you understand the pain point. Don't put it on somebody else to understand. Maybe there's a research team, or maybe there's success team, support teams who are supposed to find out how users are using your product. It's end of the day your users, your job. So understand what they are doing and have emotional intelligence around that. Relationship management, this is, I think, the crux is you don't any nobody reports to you except for maybe few people in the product team, right? Engineers don't report to you, designers don't report to you. So what you need to do is you need to lead by influence, and for that you need to build social capital across the organization, right? What we mean by that is have that rapport with the design team, that you're able to communicate to them, you're able to understand what they're talking about, and you're able to like lead them by influence, right? Because you'll never be able to give them a deadline or give them a timing or any kind of a problem and expect them to, align to what you want, unless you have that rapport with them, because they don't report to you, they report to somebody else in the organization. Self-awareness, avoid projecting your, this one is like very difficult, but this is and probably like, not a lot of ways of doing it, but maybe the basic way is just talk to more people, but avoid projecting your own preference on the product, right? Maybe there's a certain way that you like using Swiggy, doesn't mean that everybody likes using Swiggy the same way, right? So avoid projecting how you use it, do more research, right? Be aware of that this is a personal inclination that you have for maybe some specific reasons that you had, right? Like, say, talking about myself, like I find myself to be a very savvy user who's able to use products, like, tech products very easily. Doesn't mean that everybody is so savvy, right? Doesn't mean that everybody is going to be able to, understand where a specific button lies just because you did, right? So avoid projecting what you feel and you do onto the entire product, because your product is going to be used by hundreds or thousands or millions of users. Ruthless prioritization. This is, I think we went pretty deep in this, but keep in mind that you focus on the North Star at all times. Don't get lost between your short-term goals, that this is what you want to do in 2 months. It has to be relevant to that 5-year goal that you have. If you're doing something just for the sake of doing it, 6 months later, you are going to feel that, why did I waste my time on that? It always happens. It has happened numerous times with us. Self-management, keep it cool under pressure. A lot of times you will be in situations where you don't know what to do. And the weirdest part would be you don't even know who to ask, because it's like, everybody has their own KPI, everybody has their own roles. And there would be problems that you're not sure who can solve them, right? So just keep it cool, ask people around. And then, I think like what works for us, like at least, in Sprinter, is we are able to talk to our leadership and they are able to like guide us in those situations. But keep it under cool. And Chaitanya's analogy, remember sports teams, right? So remember the job of a coach. Social awareness, you need to understand your customers' emotions and concerns. A lot of times you will feel that, hey, this guy doesn't know what they're talking about. I know what to do with my product. This guy doesn't know how to sell my product. I know it better. But understand that they are coming from a picture where they've done it for years and years, probably, right? They have more experience of that. So you need to understand that they also have a background in it. Don't think that everybody else is stupid, very simply, right? Understand that everybody knows their role. And as a good product manager, and this is probably a quote from the Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager article that Chaitanya referred, like, don't think everybody else is stupid, right? Give people the respect they deserve, and understand what you can learn from them. Right. I think we are on time, so we could probably even skip this. I'd let the Prod Lab team make a comment on that.
Just a quick thing, Anand, if you go back to the slide once more, you'll see apart from the first thing, like first is the only thing that we learn in schools, right? Everything else is we learn doing our job, right? Whether it's working with our friends in college projects and things like that, right? And also I think there is a question in chat, which I think is important to address, whether building social capital is like being nice, liked, important, as this comes as at the risk of being a pushover. Like, I don't think building social capital is being nice, Mayank, right? Or anyone, because like frankly, building social capital is doing things right. And in my career, at least I've seen that if you're doing things right, even if you are, forthcoming, like communication goes hand in hand with doing things right, right? So it's not being nice, it's just that you are very open to communication. You're making sure that everyone is aware why you're taking a decision and what decision is being taken, and no one is kept outside loop, right? If you try to being nice being a product manager, you saw that hundreds of people who are coming to you every day to have their priorities being built. So if you try to being nice, then you are just doing disservice to yourself, to your designers, to your developers, because they will be paying the price for you being nice, and they will have to spend day in day out building things that product don't really need, right? So it's not being nice, it's being very open to communication and be very available emotionally, and right, to everyone, to talk to that, hey, why you are doing something. The why part is very important.
I think one more thing that helps build social capital is, maybe like being a little result oriented. But if you work and you're able to like, make decisions and get results for your company, that automatically builds your social capital, because you are end of the day benefiting your leadership, right? You're benefiting the organization. When you're working with customers, if the customers are successful, that is going to build your social capital, right? So whatever you're doing, if you get successful in that, then that also builds your social capital. So like not just being nice.
Perfect. All right, I think we can over to the Prod Lab team, Namrata and everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Chaitanya and Anant. I think all the questions also have been answered on chat, and there was one small, question remaining. Uh, you mentioned that feature. There was a question that said, "Are project managers feature managers? What is the, if not, what is the distinction between project managers and product managers?"
Oh, no, no, no. So one, I didn't say project manager is the feature manager. I said product manager fall under the trap of being a feature manager. Project manager is very important, right? Project manager is a program, basically program manager role. Like a lot of big companies run on program management, right? So basically a program manager, like, see, as a product manager, your job is to defining the priority, to making sure that everything is clearly spec'd out, making sure that people are adopting it. But like once you set the priority, once you have set the pace in motion, it's program manager's job to make sure that it's getting delivered. Everything we talked about, say Anand and I can sit on table and plan across hundreds of things, but those wouldn't get possible if we don't have someone who is doing the program management part of it, right? So product manager and program manager has to go hand in hand, right? Just that a lot of time people hire product manager, but they have program management job in mind, and vice versa, right? What I meant by feature manager is like when you start in the product manager domain, right, you typically start just as a feature manager, but it's very important for you yourself to quickly move up the spectrum and not just think of features and think of the larger picture, right? So there are like three different things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks a lot. And there was one more question from an undergraduate student. As a new joinee, new PM, is there any to-do list or something that a new PM has to look into?
So again, I'll tell you. Okay, so my answers to this question is generally a little unconventional, right? So you can do tons of things, right? You can read books. I can guide you a lot of blogs and everything. But I'll tell you what works for me. If I open my phone right now, and it's not there with me right now, you'll see that I generally use only 10 to 15 apps on day-to-day basis, but my phone will have 200 apps, simply because I'll find anything interesting, I'll install it, I'll play around with it, I'll ask myself question, hey, why this is happening, why did they take this particular decision, why A, B, C, and D, and just try to play around with that. So that just builds that product thinking in you, right? So make product thinking as part of your day-to-day thinking, right? Be very critical. Hey, why did Zomato and Swiggy? Ask yourself those questions. Just pick up any competitive company, ask yourself a question. What is the difference between Swiggy and Zomato, right? Swiggy is a delivery company, whereas Zomato is a restaurant or a food company. Why did they choose those paths, right? Read a lot. There are tons and tons of blog. Like Twitter is a beautiful place. If you go to Twitter without this getting into all these political things, like there are tons of very good people that I follow who write very good things, right? So tons of blogs that you can read. There are a lot of books that you can read. But what has helped me the most is just imbibing that product thinking in my day-to-day mindset, right? Why did this company take, why did Facebook partner with Reliance? Ask yourself that critically, right? Not just read through it and just pass it along, right? And just then use whatever that Reliance Mart, see how its experience is different from Big Basket. Why did they they take that experience? Why didn't they take any other experience? Ask yourself all those questions, right?
One more way to get into product thinking, don't just think of tech products as products. Like every single thing that you use is end of the day a product that somebody built, right? Like anything you think of, like maybe a glass of water, right? Like a simple glass or a cup, everything is a product, right? You just think of if if the cup has that holder in that little shape, Why did they build that shape, right? That's a product. Somebody's using it. It has been designed a certain way, right? Everything is a product that you're using here. So just think of everything in those terms. Like, why did somebody build it this way? Not just, maybe not just like every app, but every single thing that you use.
Sure, that was very clear. And I think we all are motivated a lot more to get into the product management domain with this session. And Nidhi Dubey, she has raised her hand. Can we take up her question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Nidhi. Nidhi, are you there?
She might be facing net issues. Let's know.
Anish, do you have any more questions?
No, Namita, you can go.
Okay, there was one more question saying, isn't gathering domain or sector knowledge very important? PMs are generally known to switch their jobs very fast.
I think that this question can apply to anything. Really, PMs are generally known to switch jobs very easily. Like I would say, don't switch jobs very easily. Like wherever you're going to stay there for at least 2 to 3 years. In general, that's my advice. And unless you absolutely hate the place, but yes, gathering domain knowledge is very. I think it helps you a lot, and that's why you'll see that as you move, it like you move sectors very in the early parts of a career, but as you move up the ladder, you like you'll see someone going in from one edtech company to another edtech company or taking a larger role in edtech company. So bringing sector knowledge definitely helps. But at the same time, there are some things, as you saw during the presentation, right? There are some things which are irrespective of channel. Like these are the skills that you just imbibe, right? So these can work across sectors, like nothing really specific to sector. And it depends on the industry also, frankly, right? What does that industry require? There might be industry which is like, like for example, it would be very difficult for a non-tech guy to go to AWS, right? Because that is a different ball game altogether, right? So it depends which company you're going to, the context of the company, how they're hiring. So and it is irrespective of the PM job. Like I can very well make this statement about consulting, right, or about marketing, right? So this is a very this question can apply to anything really.
Yeah, that is indeed very true. I mean, that's mainly because we are product managers and you are responsible for a product. Generally, people tend to switch. Yeah. If you have the slide, I mean, you could continue with the slide and then.
No, this is it seemed like contextual, so I brought it up. Since you're over time, we can just skip this. This is the last slide.
Yeah, there is Namita, just one more question is there. It's something like what is the possibility to switch to a broadman from any other roles? Like, how do you guys see it?
Again, man, like it depends how the company takes it. Generally, like for example, Sprinkler, we have some very successful product managers who are coming from Tata Steel, Tata Motors company like this, and I've seen a lot of people starting like this. See, Indians tech ecosystem is very vast. We have tons of startups, right? So even if you are not from tech background, like one, if you're working in a tech company already, like one, okay, when I'm making this statement, we are talking specifically about tech products. So one, if you're working in a tech company, it's best to first switch internally and then search for other roles. If you're not working in a tech a company, like you can find companies which are in your domain itself, but tech companies, and then try to go there, a smaller startup in a product role. As companies become bigger, they would not hire directly from, say, a non-product background, but smaller companies do. And India has a lot of them, so there's no dearth of them. And I have personally seen tons of successful product managers who come from non-traditional product backgrounds. Yeah.